Alright guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today. My first out and about video in quite a wee while actually. So today we are in Berlin, we are in the Mitte district, and we are going to have a little look at Georgbräu, which is a brew pub, and I actually visited here with my dad a couple of years ago, so nice to go in and actually do a little bit of a film in here. So let's do as we always do, we'll have a look around, we'll try some of the beers, we'll have some of the food, and yeah, just hopefully you guys enjoy this one. So let's crack on. Georgbräu in Berlin Mitte. Yeah guys, just to let you see where this is, as you can see there's the front there, Georgbräu, and yeah, if you just kind of follow the river along there you've got the Berlin Dome, so yeah, it is pretty cool. But aye, let's have a wee walk in and see what we can do. This is quite cool, it opens at 1, all the other ones seem to open at about 4, but yeah, in the summer you've got all the nice tables sitting outside. We're here in April, so yeah, they might open up some of this later, but yeah, we'll go and have a little look. There we go. Yeah, let's go inside and see what we've got. Alright guys, so yeah, when you come in, it is pretty much as German as you can get. So yeah, you come through, you've got the nice big copper kettles here. Yeah, they're obviously brewing something today. There you can see the steam coming out of it. So obviously you've got your boiler kettle and your mash tun and stuff like this. You can smell the lovely kind of wet malts and things. But yeah, you see all that kind of traditional copper cladded pipe work and things here. So you're getting the beer pretty much as fresh as you can get, and you can take some of them to go as well. This is pretty cool actually. You can buy the little bottles to take away. Don't know if I'll be able to do that this time, but yeah. So through here they've got a little Brauhaus Georgbräu, which is having a little private event, so we can't really look at that. But yeah, this place is pretty nice actually. I'm going to be sitting here in a second and doing some tastings, but yeah, pretty awesome I have to say. So yeah, let's have a little look and we'll see what we've got. We'll sit down, have some beers. There we go. Alright guys, well, time for the first tasting then. So our first one is the Helles, which seems to be one of 2 regulars that they have on tap. So yeah, this one comes in at 5% ABV, and it is exactly as you'd expect from a German Helles. So there you can see the Georgbräu symbol there, which looks pretty cool. I've got the light coming in right at me this way, which is quite nice for the camera, but not so good for the glass actually. But yeah, this is a 0.4 litre by the way, and the beer here seems to cost, yeah, for a 0.4 litre it's €4.60, so not bad, better than Swedish prices. But yeah, as you can see, this one's poured. I had the head on a little bit bigger just before I started filming, but it's poured with about a half finger. Frothy, creamy white head there. You can see it's got the lovely kind of natural haze to it, unfiltered, as you'd expect from a German Helles. This one has a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. I mean, remember, the colour of your beer depends on the type of malts that you use. This one's using a lot of different kind of, you know, pale malts and stuff like that actually. So it looks pretty much as you'd expect, and as we say, they've got that lovely kind of natural Brauhaus haze to it. It says that this one has both Hallertau, bitter and aroma hops. So yeah, this should be pretty cool. Let's take a look at the aroma before we have a taste then and see. Oh yeah, it's pretty nice. I love these Brauhaus beers. They're always very, very nice. So yeah, straight away with this one, you get that lovely soft, fresh, white bready character out of it. There's a wee bit of bread crust in there. It does have a slightly sweeter side to it as well. You get a little bit of a kind of biscuity, McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing out of it. But yeah, it's that lovely kind of soft, fresh, white bready kind of thing that's coming out of this. It is very, very nice smelling beer, this one, I have to say. Yeah, malty side of things is exactly what I'd want from a Helles. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, you've got a little bit of a kind of smooth earthiness to it, which is kind of what you'd expect from Hallertau hops. You always get a little bit of that smooth earthiness. It's got a nice kind of smooth floral aromatic character to it as well, but quite bright, a little bit of grassiness. And I would say that the grain component of this beer does lean towards a sort of soft grassiness rather than anything else. But on the fruity side of things, I mean, you've got a little bit of a kind of, there's a little bit of a kind of soft, very bit of a light kind of soft apricot-y sort of thing to it. You know, you have that typical slightly peary ester as well. Yeah, lovely kind of soft peary ester, maybe even a teeny little bit like sultana sort of thing. And of course you've got these nice fresh grassy esters coming out of the beer as well. So yeah, aroma-wise, this is exactly what you would want from a German Helles, this one. Of course, usually in Germany you have two types of Helles, the Münchner Helles and the Dortmunder Helles. Yeah, the Dortmunder tends to be a little bit more hoppy in my experience. This one smells a little bit more like a Munich Helles, I should say. It's got a little bit more of that kind of bready kind of vibe to it. But yeah, looks nice, smells the part. Let's have a taste of it then and see how we go. So yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, 5% ABV this one. So the Georgbräu Helles, here we go. Ooh, that is really, really smooth and almost creamy actually. Mouthfeel of that, it's really interesting. Overall, I would say that this one, it strikes me as quite a malty leaning Helles, which again pushes me toward saying that it's more of a Munich Helles. But remember, when we talk about Czech lager beers are always more kind of yeasty and creamy, and this one has a similar thing like that to it as well. So you could also compare this beer to, for example, like a Czech Svetli. Actually, it really reminds me of some of the ones that I had in the Czech Republic. Actually, this is a very kind of yeasty, smooth, and creamy sort of Helles. This one, but you know, straight out the tap at the Brauhaus, you're not going to get it fresher than this. So yeah, let's break it down then. Middle of your palate, you have that lovely kind of smooth white bready sort of thing there. You get a little bit of bread crust underneath, soft kind of fluffy white bread on top, but then it feels like a kind of wet white bread there as well. So that's the middle of your palate. Just on top of that, you get a little bit of a kind of, you know, McVitie's digestive biscuity type vibe to it as well. Yeah, it does have just that little bit of sweetness in the middle of the palate too, so I would say, yeah, a nice kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character for sure. Yeah, on the back third of the palate then, you can get more of the yeasty character out this one. You can feel that sort of bready, doughy character being a little bit more kind of it just feels a little bit taller in that sense. You've got a little bit more of that kind of fluffy yeastiness on the back third of your palate, and the flavour just feels a little bit taller. So as you come further forward into the middle of the palate, you'll feel it starts off really tall, then it just squashes down and condenses a little bit. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty side of the beer. It gives you everything you would want from a Helles lager. So yeah, hoppy side of things then. Back corners of your palate, a little bit of a kind of smooth earthiness there. As you come further forward, wee touch herbal. As you reach the front corners of the palate, it does give you a little touch of a kind of slightly spicy floral aromaticity. Hallertau hops can do that. Tettnangers as well, they can do that as well. German noble hops always have just a little teeny bit of floral spice to them, but generally speaking, they're very smooth in their properties. But round the front curve of the palate, you get a little bit of a lighter grassy sort of thing. There's a wee bit of zesty character in there as well, and yeah, I think this one goes together really nicely on the hoppy side of the beer too. Let's focus on the front third of the palate and the fruity side of the beer. Yeah, for me, this one, the fruity side of things, it's kind of as I described in the aroma. You know, the base of that front third of your palate, again, smooth and bready. Toward the back of the front third of your palate, you get a wee bit of a kind of sultana type thing, sort of a dry white green grapey character almost. And as you come further forward, it gets a little touch more sort of peary in things. There's maybe one or two little very, very slightly appley flavours in there as well. But yeah, it's a kind of sultana-y, sort of sultana-y, slightly apricot-y, very slightly appley kind of note. And then just as you reach the front tip of the tongue, you start to get those more kind of slightly zesty, grassy esters out of this one. But yeah, in terms of what you would expect from a Helles lager beer, this one gives you everything that you would want. But as I say, it reminds me more of a Munich Helles than a Dortmunder, because of the kind of yeasty character and things like this. But it's a typical Brauhaus Helles, this one. It also reminds me a little bit of some of the Czech Svetlis that I had, the Czech kind of blonde lagers. But yeah, mouthfeel wise, as I said, this thing is very, very smooth. Carbonation's lovely. It's almost got that creamy feel, but that's because it's unfiltered. It's basically straight out of the kettle and into the pipes. So yeah, hoppy bitterness. This is quite low. This must be like 15 IBUs. something like that. The malty base in this one is very smooth. It really leans toward that bready side of things, but it does have a wee teeny bit of sweetness. Then the fruity side of the beer, it's got a little bit of an oily character there. But that's a very, very nice Munich Helles for me, this one. I really like that. So yeah, this is the Georgbräu Helles. 5% ABV, first beer of 3 that we're going to taste here at Georgbräu in Berlin Mitte. So let's get on to the next one. Alright guys, so between beers then we'll take a little look at the menu. So yeah, you can see the two main beers, the Georgbräu Hell and the Georgbräu Dunkel, and then you've also got a special pale ale in there. But yeah, you can order in like, you know, 0.2 litres, 3, 4, or if you're feeling really adventurous you can go for a 1.5. So yeah, decent prices. Beer's always really reasonable in Germany. But yeah, you can get lots of different kind of drinks here as well. I mean, coffee, different spirits, wine as well. You know, Germany is a very big wine country. So yeah, but some really nice food on here as well. So yeah, daily soup, pretzels, different sort of things. Yeah, the schnitzels would be more of my interest. I mean, I'm Scottish, I've got a life expectancy of 40, so I just stick to the kind of unhealthy stuff. So yeah, this bottom part is more kind of my sort of thing. So yeah, you've got Berlin meatballs, Berlin bratwurst, schnitzels, a braised leg of pork, steamed trout, sausage goulash. Yeah, very, very cool stuff. But then yeah, you've got a little bit of dessert, apple strudel, noodles and stuff like this. But yeah, all reasonable prices. I mean, remember, for those of you watching abroad, you know, £1 is about €1.20, and I think it's about $1 is about 80 cents, 80 euro cents, something like that. So that should give you guys a fair idea of what the prices are like here. But yeah, typical Brauhaus menu. But yeah, there you go. You can see they are also celebrating their 30th anniversary, and you can see my nice shadow in this video as well, which is very professional, but I don't mind. But yeah, happy 30th anniversary to Brauhaus Georgbräu. Alright guys, well, beer number 2 then here at Georgbräu. So this time we have the Georgbräu Dunkel. So yeah, one of my favourite styles of German beer. You'll know that if you've watched the channel for any length of time. You can't beat a nice kind of mahogany chestnut brown lager beer. So yeah, as you can see, this one poured again with a lovely finger of, I would call that a kind of cream, light beigey coloured head. In terms of the colour, I think it's a nice kind of sort of mix of copper and mahogany, this one. This is exactly what you would expect from the Dunkel. Some of them can be really quite dark, you know, some of them can be really almost chestnutty in colour, but then, you know, it's more the Doppelbocks are even darker than this. But yeah, this is a regular, kind of normal colour, I guess we could say, for Dunkels and Doppelbocks and stuff like that. So this is to be expected. This one isn't quite as hazy by the look of it compared to the Helles, but yeah, you can see it still very much has a little bit of that natural haze. So once again, it's unfiltered, you know, coming straight out the fermentation tank into the tap. So yeah, pretty awesome actually. But yeah, the head on this one, as I say, very light kind of beige, almost fawn colour, but a lovely, lovely looking Dunkel beer. Once again, this is a 0.4 litre. But yeah, this comes in at 5% ABV, and yeah, it just says this on the menu. It just says, yeah, it should have a kind of caramel sort of aroma and flavour, but that's what we expect of the Dunkel. Some of them can be really bready, some of them can be a little bit more toasty and brown sugary. Of course, if you want the really toasty ones, that's when you go for the Schwarzbier. But in comparison to the Czech lagers, remember, this one we could compare to a Czech Czerny. So yeah, it's pretty nice, but looks the part of a German Dunkel beer. Let's have a look at the aroma, see what we get. That's pretty damn nice, I have to say. So the backbone of this beer, you do get a little bit of a more kind of grainy, bread crusty character out of it. Yeah, you can definitely smell that wee bit more kind of grainy, bread crusty sort of thing. On top of this though, you get that lovely German kind of rye bread character. When I used to study in Heidelberg, I always loved going to the bakery and getting some rye bread. And this beer, this one to me, has a lovely kind of bready base to it. On top of that, of course, you've got some nice kind of toasty brown sugars. Yeah, lovely toasty sort of brown sugary character. It's got a sweeter caramel side to it as well. It's a very light, sort of almost crispy caramelly note that you get out of this one. Very, very nice. I wouldn't say it's like treacle or molasses or anything like that. It is more of a kind of just very slightly toasty, caramelly brown sugar. But yeah, that works. It absolutely works. On the hoppy side of things, this one shows a wee bit more earthiness. I suspect that again this will be Hallertau, maybe Titnanger hops. So yeah, you've got a lovely smooth earthiness there. I think the herbal character is in there as well, and those come out a little bit more in a Dunkel than they will in a Helles, of course. The grassiness and floral side of this beer, though, are still quite prominent, and the grassy and floral character is quite similar, so I wouldn't be surprised if this one has a very similar hop bill to the Helles that we tried in the last one. But yeah, the hoppy side of this beer comes across very nicely. A bit more earthiness, a bit more herbal character, but still that lovely, quite fresh and slightly zesty, grassy side of things. So yeah, fruity side of the beer then, let's look at that. Fruity side, again, is what you'd expect. And I've said this a million times about German beer. I love the authenticity of these. These German styles, they're a bit underrated in the modern kind of craft world. It's lovely to come to one of these beer houses and just drink some of these beers. It's great. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, for me, this one has a little bit of a... It's got a wee kind of touch of like an oily, almost very slightly figgy character, but not quite as sweet as a fig. So you get a little bit of a kind of... yeah, a wee bit of figgy note, a little bit of an almost kind of candied strawberry. It's a slightly red fruity character that you get out of this one. Maybe a little bit of a black curranty sort of thing. But remember, these fruits are not big and oily in the same ways that they are in IPAs. They are very much just kind of light and complementing the malts. The lager beers, I think, are more, especially the ones in the Brauhaus, these always tend to be quite malty and yeasty with just a little bit of fruit, and that's what you're getting here. So for me, a little bit figgy, a little bit of a slightly candy strawberry, and just a wee bit of that kind of light black curranty sort of thing coming out of it. But yeah, again, everything you would want from the style. If you know this style well, this gives you everything that you would want in the aroma profile. So I think it's about time we taste this one. So once again, 5% ABV. This is the Georgbräu Dunkel. So let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål, cheers, prost. That's pretty solid. I mean, once again, this beer, it very much has that kind of smooth, creamy, big sort of yeasty character that we talked about in the last one. When I think about this one in comparison to the Czech Chernies that I've had, this isn't quite as big and creamy as the Czech Chernies that I've had. This one actually has a little bit of that lighter character. And as I've said to you before, for me, the main difference between a Czech lager and a German lager, the Czech ones are, you know, really, really thick and creamy. The German ones tend to have a little bit more kind of crispness and lightness to them. The Dunkel shows that in this brewery a little bit better than the Helles, in my opinion. So yeah, but this is a lovely, lovely Dunkel once again, but quite a bready leaning one. Definitely quite a brown bready leaning Dunkel for me. So, if you focus on the middle third of your palate with this one, backbone of the beer, you've got a little bit of this kind of dry rye bread crust sort of thing. On top of that, you get more of a kind of, it's got a little bit of a kind of, it's got a little bit dry, a little bit of a more kind of dry, grainy breadiness to it actually. So on top of the bread crusty there, you get a slightly drier rye bread type vibe to this beer, and that's quite nice. This beer is a little bit drier into the aftertaste. It's a wee bit more dry than some other Dunkels that I can think that I've had offhand recently. But yeah, the other thing I would say is that the brown sugar component of this one isn't quite as strong in the flavour that it is compared to what it is in the aroma. So that's another interesting point for me. Yeah, I think, yeah, for me, on top of that kind of brown bready layer, it has got a smoothness to it on top. So as I say, bread, like quite dry bread crust, a slightly drier, more grainy rye bread on top, slightly smoother layer, but on top of that you get a bit of the toasty brown sugar from me, and yeah, it really is like a slightly toasty, caramelly vibe that you get out of this one. So yeah, it's interesting for sure, but certainly not as sweet as I thought it was going to be from the aroma. I thought this one was going to be quite bready, but also, you know, quite sweet in its character. But yeah, it's just got a little bit of a very light, toasty, caramelly vibe to it, but not a lot. Back third of the palate, you've got the similar things. You've got a slightly more prominent, a slightly more bitter, grainy side to it, a thicker brown bready layer, but I would say the brown bready layer on the back third of the palate is a bit softer. Then you get the kind of yeasty character above that, and that just feels like a more dense, doughy bready thing as well. But yeah, you might get one or two kind of woody undertones to this beer a little bit later on, but yeah, I think that describes it fairly well. And the malt, from the malty yeasty side of things, and this of course is a more malty yeasty leaning lager beer. So on the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, a little bit of a more earthy character there. It's a little bit herbal as you come further forward, and again this is more prominent in Dunkel beers than it is in Helles. As you move toward the kind of front corners of your palate, you have a lovely little bit of floral aromaticity. Around the front curve of the palate, a wee bit more lighter and grassy from the hoppy side of things too. A little touch zesty, so again I think it's the same hops that are in this one as we had in the Helles before. But let's focus on the front third of the palate and the fruity side of the beer. So, fruity side of the beer for me, front third of your palate, it's got a little bit of a light brown bready base to it. On top of that, I don't get so much of the figgy character that I was getting, but there's like a light, wet layer of blackcurrant in this one. Absolutely, so you've got this little wet, light blackcurrant, but on the front third of your palate, the further you go into the aftertaste, it's the breadiness that just pushes out, and that's quite nice actually. So the fruity character in this beer is quite simple for me. Like the front third of your palate, dry, brown bread, a little bit of a lighter, kind of black curranty sort of thing, maybe a wee tiny hint of like that candied strawberry in the aftertaste, but yeah, quite a straight shooting on this beer. But this beer actually to me feels a bit lighter than the Helles did when I think about it, which is kind of unusual. But yeah, very bready Dunkel this one. But let's round off with the mouthfeel. So mouthfeel wise, this one is, for me, this feels lighter than the Helles did. So for me, this is kind of top end of light bodied, carbonation smooth once again, but this beer feels a little bit wetter for sure. It feels a little bit wetter for sure. But then on the hoppy side of things, I think it's got a wee bit more bitterness, but that comes both from the grains and the hops. So this is maybe about 20 IBUs. Malt base, as I say, leans towards the bready side of things, gives you a bit more dryness later on, and you've also got just a little bit of a fruity, kind of wet, a wet fruity character to this one. So yeah, an interesting Dunkel beer this one, a bit lighter in the bready character than some of the other ones that I've had, but definitely one of the more bready leaning ones at the same time. That's different compared to a lot of Dunkel beers, sorry, that I've had in recent times. So yeah, let's round it off there. That is the Georgbräu Dunkel, 5% ABV. One more to do, that is going to be a paleo, so catch you with that one in a second. So yeah guys, when you're in Germany at a Brauhaus, go for the pretzel. And they've also got goulash soups, so yeah, you can't go wrong with that. Let's have a little look at these. Alright, well, let's have a little look at the goulash then. We all know what a pretzel tastes like, so I don't think we need to do the pretzel. But let's have a look at this. This goulash actually looks as if it's lots of beef and lots of potato, so you can't go wrong with that. You really can't. Beef, potato, a bit of cream, a bit of bread. You can't go wrong. So yeah, have a wee look at that. There you are. Lovely. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, it's just got a really good balance between being meaty and potatoey. You've got the wee bits of bread as well, and I've got a pretzel sitting here which will be very good with it. Yeah, this will be a good fill. This will be a good fill. I was hoping that they might have Kartoffelsuppe because I think it's just about the season for that. One of my favourite German things is Kartoffelsuppe. Potato soup for those of you that don't speak German. But yeah, this is very nice. The goulash here is pretty damn awesome. But yeah, it says they've got a daily soup, so this will change from day to day when you're here. Just be aware of that. But yeah, very satisfied with that. But yeah, let's go on to our last beer then, the Paleo. Catch you guys in a second. Very impressed with the food. Alright guys, well, our third and final beer tasting then here at Georgbräu in Berlin Mitte. So yeah, the last beer that we're going to have a look at is the Paleo. So yeah, it doesn't say what ABV this one is, but yeah, Pale Ale is obviously not a style native to Germany, it comes from England originally. So this is what I've been saying in some of the other videos about how these German Brauhauses are now starting to try styles of beer that are not native. So there's some really interesting things going on in Germany, both in the kind of new wave American type craft scene, but also in the old Brauhauses too. So yeah, oddly enough, it doesn't say what the ABV on this beer is. But anyway, you can see it poured once again with more than a finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy coloured head. But yeah, colour-wise, this one's a light sort of caramel kind of thing. One or two big bubbles on the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But you can see this one is markedly clearer than what we had before. So yeah, lovely looking beer, this one. Again, remember, the colour of your beer depends on the type of malts that you use. So yeah, pretty awesome this one. Looks like a West Coast Pale Ale. I think this is going to be quite nice. But yeah, it says on the menu that it's hopped with Mandarina Bavaria and Cascade. Cascade is a hop we know quite well, about 8% alpha acid, lovely kind of soft figgy notes, but also a bit of grapefruit. And you also have the Mandarina Bavaria, which I think is about 8% alpha acid as well, and it's got that lovely big oily orangey sort of thing. But yeah, in terms of what you'd expect from the appearance of a Pale Ale, this one gives you everything you'd want, so nothing more that we really need to say about that. But quite cool to come somewhere like this and be able to try a Pale Ale. So yeah, not a style native to Germany at all. So let's look at the aroma, see what we've got. Yeah. That's pretty nice. I mean, this reminds me of some of the really old school American style craft beers that I've had in Germany. One of the things that you always get, you get lovely takes on American beer here, but you've got that German malt base. The German malt is very distinctive for its breadiness and stuff like this. So you can pick that up right away. You get the nice big American kind of hoppy notes out of this, but you get that more traditional big bready German malt base. Awesome stuff, I really like this. So, backbone of this beer, a little bit of bread crust, a lot of soft white bread for me in this one too. On top of that, you can smell a wee bit of a sweet caramel for sure. Definitely some McVitie's digestive biscuit, but you've also got a bit of that more oily caramel. I mean, from the colour of this beer, you do expect there to be like a little bit of carapils or caramel or something like this. So yeah, definitely a wee bit of that brown sugary element for sure. Oily caramel. Gives you a little bit of booziness as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if this is like 6%, and that's strong for German beer as well. I wouldn't be surprised if this is 5 or 6, but you can really smell the freshness of the hops out of this too. But yeah, lovely malt base on this one. That German bready character, but then the sweet caramel, McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing you'd expect of a West Coast Pale Ale. I think this one is absolutely going to be a West Coast Pale Ale. On the hoppy side of things then, yeah, hoppy side of things, back corners of back of the nose, you certainly get a wee touch of earthiness there. There's a wee bit of a herbal note. You also get quite a lot of floral aromaticity with this one as well, and you're going to get that with a Pale Ale. But it's interesting because I think the American hop, you can smell the more oily character from the green component of the American hop in this one. So yeah, this definitely has a bit more of an oily character rather than a smooth character to that green component compared to the Helles and the Dunkel that we had before. But remember, this is an ale rather than a lager. The other two were lagers, low temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast. This is the ale, so high temperature fermentation, top fermenting yeast. So that makes a big difference. But yeah, fruity side of things, it's what you'd expect from these two hops. You've got a little bit of the grapefruit in there from the Cascade, but mainly that soft, slightly oily, figgy kind of thing. And you've also got that big, nice, oily orange from the Mandarina Bavaria. So yeah. Yeah, nice big oily fruity character. This is like a really nice old school West Coast Pale Ale.
It does remind me a little bit, when I think of Dale's Pale Ale from Oscar Blues in America, it's got a little bit of that kind of vibe going on, but obviously it's got a touch of Germany to it. It's got the German malt base, and it's got the Mandarina Bavaria, which is a German hop. So yeah, lovely smelling beer, this one. Very promising on the aroma. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of your beers before you get stuck in. Let's have a taste of this one then. So yeah, this is the Pale Ale. Doesn't say what percentage it is, from Georgbräu, our third and final tasting. Slange, skål, cheers, prost. Yeah, that is pretty damn solid, I have to say. It does remind me of a lot of the German takes I've had on like West Coast IPAs and stuff like this. I mean, it's got the big smoothness you want from the German malty side of things. It's got the sweetness, the kind of oiliness from the brown sugar. You've got those bigger kind of hoppy characteristics as well. Yeah, this is a really nice, just easy drinking pale ale, this one. Very, very good. Yeah, I like this. So, middle third of your palate then, you get a little bit of that bread crusty base, a bit like a fresh white bread base. On top of that, you get that lovely fluffy white bread thing. I mean, the German malt is always going to give you that big fluffy white bready base. Yeah, this is really, really solid. Yeah, on top of the white bread, you do get a little bit, you can feel there's like a layer of that McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. In the dead centre of your palate, you get a little circle where you've got a bit more of a kind of oily, straight up caramel out of the beer. You're always going to get that from a nice pale ale, but this is definitely a West Coast pale ale, none of this New England stuff. Absolutely West Coast pale ale, but I'm guessing this place is brewing in accordance with the purity law. So yeah, it would make sense. It absolutely makes sense. Yeah, this is good. This is nice. Just a solid take on the West Coast pale ale. But yeah, back third of the palate then. Backbone, back at the base of that back third of the palate, a bit of a slightly stronger, more grainy bread crust. On top of that, you get a thicker, kind of brown bready sort of thing. The brown bready note feels a little bit more dense actually on that back third of the palate, and a wee bit more grainy. And on top of that, you get the yeasty characteristic, which is a little bit drier and a little bit more bread crusty. One or two little crackery elements in the flavour of this beer too, but yeah, back third of the palate always a bit taller in the middle third of the palate, so pretty good. It's pretty good. Somebody isn't happy over there, obviously. But yeah, malty side of this beer is pretty nice, and what you would expect for an American pale ale, but for a German take on an American pale ale, this is pretty awesome. So, hoppy side of things. Back corners of the palate, you definitely get a wee bit of earthiness there. Wee bit of herbal character too, but as you move further forward, you do get a nice bigger floral aromatic sort of thing there. It really is showing the American side of the hoppy thing, and you can tell from the bitterness in this, it does have a wee bit more kind of early edition hop. Absolutely. So yeah, round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a more kind of oily grassiness. There's a wee bit of zestiness as well, which I do like. Then the front third of your palate, you've got that big oily fruitiness. So yeah, base of the front third of the palate, soft and white bready. On top of that, you get the nice oily fruits from the hop. So towards the back of that front third, bit of a stronger grapefruity note. As you move further forward, definitely a wee bit more kind of light and figgy, as you would expect from Cascade. But then in the front half of that front third of your palate, you get that big oily orange that you would expect from the Mandarina Bavaria. But let's round off this one with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So for me, this beer, definitely mid-bodied. A wee bit more crisp carbonation to it compared to the Dunkel and the Helles that we had before. But again, you need to think about this with the ale. Normally though, you would expect lagers to be a little bit lighter and crisper. But yeah, this one's got a bit more bitterness to it. I wouldn't be surprised if this is like 30, 35 IBUs, maybe even a wee bit higher than that. So good little bit of bitterness. The malty base is quite nice, light and crisp. Wee bit of sweetness in there as well. Then you've got a big oily, fruity character. But this beer does give you a wee bit of a bitter kick the further that you go into the aftertaste with it. But yeah, it does remind me of quite a few of the German takes I've seen of American style beers in the past. So it gets a thumbs up from me, this one. So yeah, this is our third and final tasting, the Georgbräu Paleo. So let's leave it at that. We'll go outside in a wee minute and I will give you my final thoughts on Georgbräu here in Berlin Mitte. Catch you in just a second.
Alright guys, well, time to round off our time here at Georgbräu in Berlin Mitte. So yeah, I had a really fun time here. There was a group of Scottish guys sat next to me who were here on a stag do, and there was also an American guy called Mika, so shout outs to both of them. But yeah, it was really cool to try the different beers here. Out of the three, I would say that my favourite was probably the Helles. Been missing drinking these German Helles beers on tap, but the Paleo was also quite impressive. I always enjoy the German takes on the different American styles of beer, but in total it cost me 24 euros. Left a little bit of a tip obviously as well, but we won't include that, but about 24 euros, so 240 Swedish kroner, maybe about £20 British, and what's that going to be, maybe about $28 American. So yeah, that was for 3 beers, a bit of goulash and a nice pretzel. So yeah, quite happy with that. So come and check out Georgbräu here in Berlin Mitte. I really enjoyed my time here actually. I spent about 2 hours inside drinking a couple of beers. So going to go away and check another brewery now, but I hope you guys enjoyed another out and about video here on Rampant Lion Reviews, and we will try and do a few more while I'm here in Berlin. So catch you guys on the next one. This is Georgbräu, Berlin Mitte, Berlin in Germany. Slanja, Skål, Prost.